On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we have part two of our in-depth two-part no-holds-bar interview with former New York Giants linebacker Jonathan Casillas as we cover the offense and the future of the team's leadership and the direction that the team is going in. That's all coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to get to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. All right, Giant fans, on today's show, part two of my interview with Jonathan Casillas. Now, if you didn't see part one, I'm going to link it in the show notes. I highly recommend you check it out because there was a lot of good stuff. We talked primarily about the defense. Jonathan had some really good insight coming from a player's perspective or a former player's perspective into some of the problems that we have seen with the Giants defense, whether there's a fit, for what Shane Bowen's doing versus the talent that he has. So it was a really, really good discussion. That was part one. And on today's episode, we're airing part two. So part two is going to cover the offense. We're going to take a look at the scheme. We're going to take a look at the quarterback situation, where things went wrong. I asked Jonathan about Daniel Jones and why Daniel Jones in 2022 looks so good, but they couldn't get him back to looking how he did in 2022 this year and last year. So we talked about that. And then we also talked about the leadership of the team, General Manager Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll. And one of the questions I asked Jonathan is, if those two are back, what lessons do they need to learn from their past mistakes? So that's just some of what we talked about on today's episode of Locked On Giants. So without any further ado, let's get into part two of my interview with Jonathan Casillas. All right, Jonathan, I want to ask you now about the offensive side of the ball. This year, obviously, Daniel Jones came back from the ACL, which is not an easy injury to come back from, despite the advances in medicine. Brian Daboll took over the play calling. The offensive line was a little bit better. They got a number one receiver, Malik Neighbors, but yet Daniel Jones, for whatever the reason, couldn't quite get back to the level he was in 2022. And we even saw him struggle last year. Where do you think things went wrong for him? Again, was it the system? Was it just a fault in his play? Where did it go so wrong at quarterback?
To be honest, and I think I can say this now that he's not part of the Giants, I don't think Daniel Jones was ever that guy. I think 2022 was the best year he's ever had. That was the best year he's ever had. And he didn't really have numbers of a good quarterback. He had efficient numbers, but those weren't like good numbers. Like, he had 15 passing touchdowns, right? What made him have a good year, he ran the ball well. Saquon was here. They ran the ball well. The Giants were good on third down, and they were really good in the red zone. How are you a good red zone team? Usually that means you can run the football. Teams like Baltimore, why are they so good in the red zone? Because the quarterback is a weapon. Daniel Jones was a weapon in 2022. I don't know what happened in 2023. I don't know what happened this year, but he wasn't a weapon no more. He was a liability because it wasn't his legs that we were talking about. It wasn't the ground game that led the Giants to the playoffs in 2022. The Giants tried to do a little bit more of an aerial attack. I don't think Daniel Jones was ever built for anything like that. So no matter who you got in there to play wide receiver, that was Daniel Jones, I think, limit right there. I think that was the best we've seen from him. And look, we've seen Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, I'm so bad with names, and I know all the names too. Coming in Seattle quarterback, Gino, my former teammate, Gino. Sorry, Gino.
Russell Wilson.
We
I know where you're going.
right, but no, yeah, Russell had 1 year, well, I guess a year, 2 years in Denver. Yeah, but he had success early in his career. Those guys I named before, they did not have success early in their career. They struggled early in their career. Found a new location, sat the bench for a little bit, learned from some guys, learned from some coaches, and had a resurgence in their career. Possibly could happen with Daniel Jones, but he can't play the way he's played for the Giants for the last 6 years and have success anywhere he goes, because that's not winning football, and quarterback play for the New York Giants have been very suspect. And even in 2022, having 15 passing touchdowns, Patty, you know what I mean? Like, it's not good. Like, I mean, that's okay, right? I'll give them okay, right? What made it great was that the Giants turned the ball over on defense. They took the ball away and they protected the ball on offense. They were really good in a turnover takeaway ratio, right? That's how you get a team. Look at the Steelers. The Steelers aren't really lighting up the scoreboard like that, but they're like plus 14 or something crazy like that. And you look at their record. That's why they sit at the top of AFC North. Look at Baltimore. Baltimore, elite offense, incredible offense. You saw what they just did to the Giants, right? They're only plus 2. That's why their record is the way it is. The takeaways and turnovers has everything to do with wins and losses. If you're an elite team and you can score with, and you don't have that turnover takeaway ratio, your record is going to show it. Just like Baltimore. Baltimore is not at the top of their division. They're behind the Steelers because the Steelers is one of the top teams in taking the ball away, and they do a good job of not giving the ball away. 2022 Giants did a great job in taking the ball away, and they didn't give the ball away. So with all of the BS that's involved in the week-to-week and the day-to-day and how the season goes, if you can figure out how to be plus 1 every other game and, end up with a good plus 5, plus 6, plus 7 at the end of the season, that's a playoff caliber team, Patty, no matter what the numbers look like. So those numbers from 2022, they were good enough because the Giants took the ball away and they didn't turn the ball over. And watch, when we get to the playoffs, not we, but when the NFL gets to the playoffs, look at every single team in the playoffs turnover ratio. The worst team probably is going to be 500 at worst. But you probably won't see a team at all in the playoffs that have a negative turnover ratio. It's that important. And the Giants didn't take the ball away this year, and they weren't turnover prone this year, but they still had more turnovers and takeaways. And last week, they were this close to winning it. And then Tim Boyd threw the interception at the end. That would have been the first time they won the turnover battle this year. The 2 games that the Giants won, they were tied. That would have been the first game that they actually won. And the crazy thing about it was, right, the Giants still would have got beat by 3 touchdowns by winning the turnover battle. So it's like all the stuff I just said don't make any sense when I say that, right? But that's the true key. The Giants needed to take the ball away this year and be a dominant defense to give Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, Tim Boyle, any quarterback to give them a chance to have some success on offense.
Hey, Giant fans, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching a game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away over $30 million in rewards during Picksmas. And they're also offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it so easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. And Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. So go on and download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey, Giant fans, it is that time of year. The college football playoffs are back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports' coverage of the college football playoffs begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into the first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoffs presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Jonathan, is it fair then to say that the Giants offense is a good quarterback away, or is there so much more that maybe we're not talking about that this team needs to become one of the better offenses in the league?
I think they're a little bit more than just a quarterback away, and I think for me, the most disappointing room for me for the Giants team, for me, is the wide receiver room. And the reason why I say that, because you have a tremendous young talent. You got a veteran leader in Slayton, who has been the most consistent receiver for the Giants for the last, I guess, 6 years, his whole career with the Giants. How many drops did these receivers have this year? Neighbors, Wandale, Slayton, Bellinger, Theo Johnson. Like, everybody has multiple drops this year, like big drops in really rough situations where you needed to play and they just didn't come through. And they do have talent. I think Wandale's very talented. I think you can give him the ball in several different ways. I think Neighbors has a possibility of being a really, really great receiver. He dropped the ball. I mean, every game he drops a pass. And for me, it's like you want great quarterback play, but sometimes when Daniel Jones or Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock hit the ball right in their hands, they dropped it. And that's very disheartening, for an offense, for a quarterback. It's very hard to see plays like that. You need somebody that's going to make that play 100% of the time, at least 95, because every team has a guy like that. Every winning team does. Every winning team has a guy that they can rely on. Every winning team has a guy when it's, 3rd and 5 or, red zone situation, they get single coverage, 100% they're going to him, 100%, or at least high 90%, he's going to make the play. And for me, I don't have the confidence in none of those receivers that they can come down with the football 90% of the time. They haven't done it this year, and for me, that was the most disappointing part, because I was highly anticipating them. My expectancy for them to play well was very high, despite the quarterback play. You look at the top receivers, in several different situations throughout the league, I'm going to go back, Gordon, right? Flash Gordon, right? Remember Flash? The guy that couldn't stay healthy with the weed. He's smoking weed all the time. He never had a good quarterback, but he was elite every single year he was in the NFL, right? The Giants need that guy. Despite the quarterback play, the receiver is still elite. And I think Neighbors has it in him, but I ain't seen it this year. I ain't seen it. What I thought I would see, I haven't seen it. And I don't really know what the cause is for that. But the Giants need a lot more than just good quarterback play. They need receivers that can hold on to the football and come up with clutch plays. I think the offensive line took a step forward this year, but the lack of depth right now, the Giants are struggling with that, with the lack of depth, right? Illuminor's playing on the other side. Evan Neal's playing. He didn't play a snap all season until injuries happened. He didn't even play, Patty, on extra point or field goal. The first time he played was in the Steelers game when the Giants had that wild swinging gate formation. That was his first play. And that was the worst play I've seen from the Giants all year. So the Giants need a lot more than just a quarterback on offense. You know, they're going to have to draft well again. I think they had a great draft last year, and they have to get, again, veteran leadership on the offensive side.
All right. Now, I've got to ask you about the elephant in the room because, Jonathan, you were there. You've seen the outcry of the fans. You saw the plane, I'm sure, the 2 planes.
Yeah.
Would it be in the team's best interest to stay with the current regime, Joe Schoen, Brian Dable, thinking that, okay, maybe another draft, maybe another free agency class will fix what ails them? Or is there an advantage or a benefit to just make a change? And how hard do you think the decision is going to be for ownership? Because obviously you want to listen to your paying customers, but at the same time, you don't want to make a snap decision.
Well, I mean, man, I'm so glad I'm not John Mara right now. You know, he has definitely a tough decision to make. The way it's looking right now, Patty, the Giants dropped what, 9 straight, is it? Or 10, is it 10 straight or 9 straight?
I think it's
9
9.
straight.
I think it's 9.
Which is a record, right, for the Giants. They haven't done that in, what, 30, 40 years or whatever. So they're on a historically bad run. With just 2 months ago, John Mara said that, you know, he's not doing anything during the season and he doesn't anticipate him making any moves with the coach or the GM after the season. Patty, they haven't won a game since then. You know, I really would hate to be in his shoes. And I think this, right, Patty? Daboll won Coach of the Year 2 years ago, right? He's a good coach. Is he a great head coach? I don't know. The question is, does he have the time to become a great head coach? We talked about some of these backup quarterbacks, right? They struggled early in their careers. They was able to sit behind some good quarterbacks or good quarterback coaches, learn the position, you know, not being active, doing it. And now they're striving now. They look like the guys that we thought they were when they were drafted so early, right? These head coaches, these new head coaches like Daboll, these new GMs like Shane, how much time do you allow them to be a rookie, right? How long do you allow them to be the young head coach? The turnover in the league is it's so fast, it's so much. There's no longevity. They don't give time for a young head coach to develop. Maybe he was a good head coach, you know, his rookie year, but he needs to become a great head coach in order for the Giants to, you know, have some success. Is he going to be afforded the time to do that? Again, is Joe Schoen, 3rd-year GM, 2.5 years being a GM, is he going to be afforded the time to actually learn from his mistakes and become a great GM? And the Giants, especially the last 7-8 years, the Giants average what, 2 years per head coach? And I just don't think it's enough time to really develop to a great head coach, because these are new coaches. I mean, new head coaches. This is the first time they've ever been a head coach. My first time playing linebacker in the league, Patty, I struggled. I struggled. Yeah, I could play fast. I had a good rookie year. I was very limited on special teams. But like if I was a starter, you know how many mental errors I would have had my rookie season? You know, like, and we're not treating these head coaches like they're rookies. It's like, you got to win now. You hired, you got to win now. And it's like, wow, he don't even know what he's doing. You know, like when you first do something, me doing media, right, for the last couple of years, it was a lot of things I had to learn, right? I think I'm a lot better now than I was 2 years ago, right? But I don't have to worry about other people performing for my job security like Daboll does, like Joe Schoen does. He has to worry about everybody else performing well for him to keep his job. And then you look at it, everybody's hurt. So it's like, that's been 2 years now. 2 years. I don't know how many people they got on IR. 20 something now on the injury report. It's like 20 something guys. I don't know, how do you win? Even if you are a great coach, how do you win with that? And the sad thing about it is if the Giants don't win a game, I don't know how you can stay with this regime losing 12 straight games, Patty. I think they can get some solace out of, finding a win down the stretch, but it's going to be hard. Atlanta's playing for everything right now. They're playing for their playoff hopes. I'm pretty sure the Eagles, they're going to be playing in week 18 because of the Lions and what they're doing. Colts maybe at home, the last home game. But like the Giants they're on their way to being a historically bad team. Like the worst home team ever. I don't think there's ever been a team. It's only been 3 years where a given team plays 9 home games. If the Giants go 0-9 at home, Patty having a historically bad season, that's gonna make it very difficult for John to make a decision. Or it'd be easy. I don't know. I just know I'm glad I'm not him and have to make that decision because that's rough.
Hey, Giant fans, time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How could you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including literature, mathematics, fine arts, history, economics, and so much more. There's no better way to expand your knowledge and to challenge your mind than to open it to learning something new from Hillsdale College's vast catalog of online courses. Enroll today for free at hillsdale.edu/lockedon. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. Again, that's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Jonathan, final question for you. If Joe Shane and Brian Dable are back, what is the one thing for each man, maybe a mistake that they've made repeatedly or something that you feel has been absolutely glaring that they have to address moving forward if this team is to get back on the right track?
I think hopefully they learned this now. There was a chemistry that existed regardless of the regime, regardless of the head coach, regardless of the GM. There was a locker room chemistry that existed with the New York Football Giants for the last few years. I don't think they understand what that truly means. They got rid of all of those guys that were the culture for the New York Giants in the locker room that have been here throughout several regimes. We named all the guys earlier. Those were the leaders. Those are the cultural factors that had this team being confident throughout the years, despite having different coaches, different regimes, different GM, losing season. And I don't think they understood that, to be honest. And it was very evident to me, not that they got rid of Daniel Jones, not that part. It was what Dexter Lawrence said when he was asked. Do you remember what he said, Patty? They said, "How do you feel about the whole D. Jones situation?" Remember the first thing that he said?
I think so.
He said, "They got rid of my best friend last year." That was the first thing he said. That was the first thing he said. When he said that, I was like, So, is he still a pro? Is he still playing for Daboll? I mean, he's hurt right now, but was he still doing it? Yes. But did he feel that? Yes, he did. He clearly, the first thing he said. I'm not reading into it, Patty. He said that. And for me, you got rid of the locker room culture. And, people's like, oh, they're going to draft their guys. They're going to bring their guys in. What foundation is here that you're adding to? Yeah, you got Dexter, you got Bobby, you got Brian, you got Slayton, you got Andrew Thomas, you got GVR, got Illuminor, right? But half of those guys are new guys. It's a new culture, and they hurt, and they've been losing. So it's like I don't think they truly understood the locker room chemistry. And Joe Shane, I think he was just thinking business wise, and he wasn't thinking chemistry wise. He wasn't thinking locker room wise. And like letting Saquon go to the Philadelphia Eagles for nothing has to be one of the biggest mistakes that a GM, a team has ever made. And I don't really know how to say it any differently, Patty, because he totally underestimated his value. He didn't think he was going to get what he was worth, but he totally underestimated what he meant in the locker room. And the team is feeling not only his departure on the field, I think his presence in the locker room. Sterling was a guy last year, he's older, he was kind of beat up, he wasn't really like a viable top 2 receiver, but look what he's doing for the Buccaneers. He's another locker room guy that got those guys fired up when Mike Evans was down, when the other receiver went down, and he was having a career year. Godwin went down. He was having a career year. I turn on the Buccaneers game. I see whatchamacallit over there dancing, Sterling over there dancing, getting the team hyped up. You need guys like that. You need guys that's going to be cheerleaders. You need guys that are going to get guys going. That veteran leadership that I'm talking about. The Giants have to, because I don't know where the culture's at. You only have culture when you're winning. That's it. There's no such thing as culture when you're losing, especially when you're stacking up multiple losing seasons. The Giants' culture is a big question mark right now. And the question is, can they establish culture so they can get some wins underneath their belt? This season, it's going to be tough to do that, given the health situation, given, the quarterback play. It's going to be rough, but if I had a team, it wouldn't be about the coaches and the scheme. It would be having the right group of men in the locker room with the right coach to lead those guys. It's not all about business. It's not about saving money and doing the right thing for the roster. You only know that when you experience it. That's the only way to figure it out. Hopefully Joe Shane knows that now, and he may go about it a little differently in the future.
It's amazing. We hear that culture word thrown around so much, and a lot of people are like, what exactly do they mean by that? We've heard Shane talk about it. We've heard Dable talk about it. And you're right. It's like they have a foundation, but do they really have a solid foundation?
And Patty, people always talk about when coaches come in and GMs come in, talk about establishing their culture. You can't forget the culture that already exists. You can't do that. Like, that's what Dexter was saying. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, Leonard, he was making like $30-something million or whatever. Like, I understand that. But you look at the transactions that's happened over the last few years, the Giants got rid of their main leaders, or the leaders that are still on the team now. They're either new or they're hurt. So it's really hard to build off of a foundation that's really rocky. And a lot has to do with free agency. A lot had to do with injuries. But that's where the Giants sit right now. They looking at trying to build or rebuild off of a rocky foundation, because this is not the same team from 2022, that team that won all of those close games. The Giants figured out a lot of ways to lose games this year, and they figured out a lot of ways to win games in 2022. So however you need to do to get back to that, whatever you need to do to get back to that, I'll take that. I'll take 15 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions if they go to the playoffs again. I'll take that too. From a pretty good quarterback, I'll take that, but you got to have the right culture, and the Giants right now, I think they're still searching for it, Patty. I think they're still searching for that culture.
Jonathan, this has been such an eye-opening discussion. I mean, to hear from a former player's perspective, something that, we see it, but we don't really know because we're not in the locker room as every day, like, or all day, I should say, like you guys are.
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate the perspective. I mean, really, really eye-opening stuff here.
Patty, thank you for having me. We've always had great talks, though, even when I was a player. I remember you used to always ask me preseason or right before the season started, like, who's a surprise pick, who's a surprise in camp. And I definitely had a couple good options for you to use, right?
Yes, you did. And you were right.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I did my homework on you. They said you were one of the smarter players that came in that year. And I was like, okay, I got to talk to this guy because he knows his stuff.
And Patty, for me, like I had a season-ending injury my second year in the NFL after being undrafted, winning a Super Bowl my rookie year, winning a Super Bowl, and winning the starting job going into my second season. I missed that whole year, Patty. When I got to the Giants, I wasn't that young, fast, explosive player anymore. Like, I could run, I could cover, but like Patty, I ran 4.3 in college. Like, I was an elite athlete. I don't know what I was running for the Giants. It definitely wasn't no 4.3. But you hang around for the years I have, and learning from all of the great linebackers that I was around, the Vilmas, the Fajitas, the Scott Shanleys, Mark Semino, even Levante David. He was younger than me, but I learned a lot from him. Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower. Like, I never was old enough to, or senior enough to learn, to not learn from somebody. So when I got to the Giants, being baptized in cover 2 by Drew Brees every week, for 4 years, I get to the Giants, I was a pretty polished product. But, and I'll leave you with this, Patty, right? In 2015, I don't know if you remember, I played a lot of middle linebacker that year, right? And for me, it was like, I had a lot of tackles, but I feel like I played terrible that year. It wasn't my right position. It's something about being in the middle of field, playing from 3 to 2 and 3 to 2, and sometimes 2 to 3. I don't know why my brain wasn't fast at processing that. And also with the dot, calling out the plays, I got moved back to my real position, weak side linebacker, my second year with the Giants, 2016. And that was the best year I've ever had, the most plays I've ever made, because that was my position. It might take some time to figure out exactly defensively, offensively, exactly where these players can thrive, right? Playing me at middle linebacker, Spags trusted me, so he kept me in there. I was not the best middle linebacker on the team, but I was the most capable and I was the most trustworthy, right? But there were plays that I want back, Patty, from that year because I was a little slow. And remember, we talked about that in the beginning of the call. We talked about being a little slow. Being a little slow is a 1 yard gain to a 7-8 yard gain, a 10-yard gain to a touchdown. That's being a little bit slow. And that's me being a 7th-year veteran, played middle linebacker before, but I was just a little bit slow. So hopefully the Giants can figure out all of these guys on defense playing their right positions so they can be fast, they can be productive, and they can get most out of their potential. Because I didn't get the most out of my potential until I played my position. And I feel like I thrived after that. It was only 1 year, but I had a pretty good year, Patty. And we were the last team to sweep Dallas, Patty. So I'm a stand on that.
As you should. I mean, that was a pretty good defense. All right, Giant fans, that concludes our two-part interview with Jonathan Casillas. I hope you really enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed hearing from him. He's a great guy. I've always enjoyed talking with Jonathan, and a lot of good information, I thought, especially in this part of the interview. So I hope you did check that out. I hope you checked out the first one. And I appreciate you tuning in, as always, to the Locked On Giants podcast. Now, coming up next week, on Monday, we'll have post-game thoughts, takeaways, and so forth from the Giants-Falcons game. I know at this point, a lot of people are like, just lose and get it over with. But we'll talk a little bit about, the key takeaways and whatnot. We'll have a show on Tuesday for you. Wednesday, we will not have a show because Wednesday, of course, is Christmas. Crossover Thursday will be next week. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with a show on Friday. Hope you will be back to follow along with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So again, thanks for spending part of your day with us. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you on Monday.